Every time I got a job, I lost it. Not because I did anything wrong, but because my parents were calling my employers behind my back. What they didn't know was that Grandma had already seen this coming. I thought I was just unlucky. That's what I told myself after the first job. Let me go. It's not working out, my manager said, avoiding eye contact. We've had concerns. Concerns about what? I asked, confused. He hesitated. It's better if we just leave it here. I didn't understand. I had shown up on time, worked hard, never caused problems. But I nodded, packed my things, and left. I told myself it was just bad luck. Then it happened again. And again. Every time I got a new job, the same pattern repeated. A few weeks in, everything would be fine, until suddenly it wasn't. Managers became distant. Coworkers started acting strange. And then came the same vague conversation. Concerns. Trust issues. Not a good fit. It didn't make sense. Until one day, it finally did. At my fourth job, my supervisor called me into her office. But this time, she didn't look uncomfortable. She looked serious. Before we make any decisions, she said carefully, I want to give you a chance to explain something. My stomach dropped. Explain what? She slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a note, typed, anonymous, but the message was clear. Be careful. They've stolen before. You can't trust them. My hands started to shake. This isn't true, I said quickly. I've never stolen anything in my life. I believe you, she said quietly, but this isn't the first call we've received. Call. My mind went blank. Someone's been contacting us, she continued, claiming to be a concerned family member, saying you have a history of theft. A family member. My chest tightened. There was only one explanation. No, I whispered, but deep down I already knew. I went home that night with a sinking feeling I couldn't ignore anymore. I walked into the living room, and there they were, my parents, sitting like everything was normal, like they hadn't just destroyed every chance I had at building a life. I looked at them, my voice shaking. Have you been calling my jobs? They didn't even look surprised. And that's when I realized this wasn't bad luck. This was intentional. They didn't even try to deny it. My mom let out a quiet sigh, like I was the one being difficult. We were just trying to protect people. Protect people? I repeated, my voice shaking. From what? My dad leaned back in his chair, completely unfazed. From you. The words hit harder than anything else. I've never stolen anything, I said, louder now. That's not what we've heard, he replied coldly. Heard from who? I demanded. Silence. There was no answer because there was no truth behind it. Just assumptions, control, and something deeper I couldn't fully understand yet. You've been calling my employers, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You've been ruining every opportunity one get. Why? My mom crossed her arms. Because you're not ready to be out there on your own. I stared at her in disbelief. So you decided to destroy my reputation? It's for your own good, she insisted. For my own good. The same excuse they'd used my entire life whenever they crossed a line. I felt something inside me crack. This isn't protection, I said quietly. This is control. My dad's expression hardened. Watch your tone. No, I snapped, years of frustration finally spilling out. You don't get to tell me how to speak after what you've done. The room went silent. For the first time, I wasn't backing down. For the first time, I wasn't letting them twist the situation. You've lied about me, I continued. You've called me a thief. You've taken away my ability to work, to earn, to live. Do you even realize what that does to someone? My mom looked away. My dad said nothing. That silence told me everything. They didn't care. Or worse, they thought they were right. I turned and walked to my room, my hands trembling with anger and disbelief. My entire future had been sabotaged by the very people who were supposed to support me. But as I sat on my bed, trying to process everything, I remembered something. A conversation. Months ago, Grandma had looked at me differently that day. Serious, almost concerned. "If anything ever feels wrong," she had said quietly, "you come to me, no matter what." At the time, I didn't understand why she said it. Now, I did. My heart started to race. What if she already knew? What if she had seen this coming before I ever did? Without thinking twice, I grabbed my phone and called her. She answered on the second ring. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I've been waiting for your call." My breath caught. "You knew?" I whispered. There was a pause. And then she said something that made my entire world shift. "I didn't just know," she said calmly. "I prepared for it. I prepared for it." Her words echoed in my mind long after she said them. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Come over," she said calmly. "It's time you saw everything." Within an hour, I was sitting in her living room, my heart racing. She walked in carrying a thick folder and placed it gently on the table between us. "I hoped I'd never have to show you this," she said, "but I knew one day you'd need it." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents, printed emails, phone logs, even recorded transcripts. Proof. Every time my parents had called one of my employers, it was there. Dates, names, what they said, false accusations, lies, carefully repeated over and over again. My stomach dropped as I flipped through page after page. "They've been doing this for years," I whispered. Grandma nodded. "I started noticing patterns after your second job. It didn't feel right, so I looked into it. You investigated them." "I protected you," she corrected softly. Tears filled my eyes, but this time they weren't just from pain. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this. "They won't be able to do this anymore," she continued. "I've already spoken to a lawyer." I looked up at her, stunned. "A lawyer? They've damaged your reputation, your income, your future," she said firmly. "That has consequences." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something unfamiliar. Power, the kind I had never felt before. "What do we do?" I asked. Grandma gave a small, knowing smile. "We tell the truth," she said, "with proof." A few days later, everything came to a head. My parents were called into a formal meeting with legal notice in hand. For the first time in my life, they weren't in control. The evidence was laid out in front of them. Every lie, every call, every attempt to destroy my life. My dad's face went pale. My mom couldn't even speak. This is a misunderstanding," he tried to say. But it was too late for excuses. Because this time, I wasn't standing there alone. In the end, it wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about taking my life back. For years, I had questioned myself, my worth, my integrity, my future, because of lies I didn't even know were being told. I carried shame that was never mine to carry. But now, the truth stood louder than anything they had ever said. With Grandma by my side, I began rebuilding everything they tried to destroy. Slowly, carefully, but this time on my own terms. And for the first time, when someone asked about my past, I didn't feel fear. I felt strength, because I knew who I was. Not the version they created, not the person they tried to tear down, but someone who survived it all and still stood tall. They tried to define me with lies, but in the end, the truth defined me instead. Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe, because every voice deserves to be heard.